So yeah, I'm really honored to be here. I got to know Max a few months ago over coffee. I knew about HTAP as a concept, knew about what was happening in GitHub, knew about PingCAP as a company. Was really compelled about what was going on because I've been following it for quite some time and sort of inserted myself into the conference here, and now you're sort of stuck with me here. Interestingly enough, it was interesting to see Matei. I haven't seen him in quite some time. So one fact that I thought was really interesting for the crowd was actually gave the keynote at the first Spark Summit, like in the early 2010s, right? And I think there was around 400 people at that conference at the time, and then you go to the sort of Databricks conference that happened a few months ago, and there's like 30,000 people online and 600 people, or no, 6,000 people in attendance. And so I thought, hey, maybe that'll happen here with the HTAP Summit as well, right? There's only a few hundred people here, but maybe in 10 years, it's 2 orders, 3 orders of magnitude larger. So I think this is a really interesting conference, and you guys are going to get a lot out of it. All right, so the way that we're going to run this panel is I'm going to have each of the panelists do a really quick, sort of pithy introduction of themselves so you get to know them. Then I'm going to go through a series of questions that they've all been aware of ahead of time, and so you may get some canned answers, but I may throw in some sort of wild cards for them and sort of surprise them along the way. And then at the end, I'm going to ask maybe some broader sort of technology questions that aren't necessarily specific around data because you guys have just listened to data questions for the last 2 hours. So I'll change it up a bit. So with that said, I'm going to ask each of the panelists here to introduce themselves. So maybe start off with where do you work? What's the title of your role there? What's the function that you play there? And then maybe, how did you get acquainted with TiDB? Right? Where were the touch points? Where did you hear about it? And how did you get to learn more? So maybe we'll just start left to right with Mayank.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mayank Srivastav. I am one of the original team members that helped build this technology called Apache Pinot, which is a real-time OLAP data store. It's powering a lot of interesting use cases in big companies like LinkedIn, Uber, Stripe, and to name a few. I am currently I joined StarTree, which is a company behind Apache Pinot now, a couple of years ago, as a founding engineer, and I currently head the data engineering org there. So as part of working in Apache Pinot, one of the things that we've kind of seen is this trend where people have transactional databases, and there's changes coming into those databases that they also want to feed into the OLAP store to be able to do real-time analytics on top of that. And that's where I kind of started looking around in adjacent technologies, and that's how I found TiDB and PingCAP.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Ed. From PingCAP, I'm actually the co-founder and the CTO of PingCAP, and actually one of the co-creator and co-engineer of building TiDB. So I think still until today, I'm still a very hands-on engineer, basically coding every day. Yeah, pretty simple. Yeah, engineer.
Hello, everyone. I'm Srinivas. I lead the partner solution architecture team at AWS for data analytics and DevOps segments. So what it means is PingCAP is one of our partners. We work with our partners to build integrations with AWS services. So the partners will get the first-party experience with our end customers. And my team also does go-to-market and technical evangelism for partners in AWS, as well as we are the thought leaders for the partner in AWS to help our end customers. So that is what I do at AWS. I have been with AWS for close to 5 years. I live in Bay Area. In the past, I have been in the data analytics space for many years, building analytics systems for enterprise companies.
Hello. Whoa, that's a little loud. Hey, Andy Trimble. I'm a principal engineer at Catalyst, also architect, also code monkey, whatever needs to be done, just kind of generalist, if you will. When I started at Catalyst, we started the process of re-architecting the system. It was a startup, so we had some tech debt to delete. So we started designing our data architecture from the ground up, and that's how we got involved with TiDB, as you'll see in a bit. Catalyst is a customer success platform. Actually, you saw a screen cap of a little bit of our app in Max's presentation. So that means we have a lot of data, so there's some very interesting challenges, and TiDB actually gets us a long way, and come to my talk later and I'll explain it more.
One of the things I was really intrigued by with this panel is it's sort of like dogs and cats all on the same stage at the same time, right? You have like Ed from PingCAP, you have Sri, who represents AWS, which you guys all sort of know what they have, and then you have Mayank from StarTree, and then you just had Matei from Databricks. So this conference is really amazing because it's not like, hey, PingCAP in your face all day long. It's not, just religiously advocating for TiDB. You're actually getting a pretty broad sort of spectrum of perspectives from different technologies and different companies, which hopefully you guys will really enjoy. So we'll start off with Ed. We just heard this really amazing keynote from Max, and you guys started the company effectively, and as CTO, you're heavily involved. Maybe just talk about how you guys started TiDB, what was the motivation, and then maybe just even how did you meet Max?
Okay. Actually, before founding PingCAP, Max and I we were working in the same company, actually in the same team. We are both engineers, just like I mentioned. Actually, in many ways, we are quite similar. We are both distributed system engineer. We basically a big fan of open source. And before creating TiDB, we created another very popular open source system. It's a cache system. It's like a distributed Redis. Even before the Redis create their own distributed version. So yeah, and we're also the big fan of Golang. So we work in the same team, and yeah, that's how we met. And we also both think that the developers deserve a better database. So that's why we started PingCAP, and that's very nature, I would say.
And do you still write code, or are you one of these like technology leaders who can't read
just
code
like I
and you don't
said,
write
yeah,
code?
I actually basically coding every day. You can check my OS inside page.
And how many PRs have you done in the last month?
I can check my OS inside page.
Oh man, you're just punting this question, aren't you? I want a number. I want an integer.
Yeah, actually, I think coding is still a very effective way to me to get the first-hand experience of our product. I think that's really important. It's how I learn new things, how I get a feeling about our product, and yeah, that's important.
All right,
to me.
I'll look in the TiDB repo after the panel.
Sure.
So maybe let's go to the other side of the panel. Andy, we did a lot of prep, or maybe an hour of prep for the panel. I'm actually seeing you for the first time, which is remarkable to do a panel in front of a few hundred people. So you mentioned and you told a sort of really interesting story about how you and the team, you encountered TiDB and you thought about how you're going to use it. We'd love to have you share that story as much as possible. And I know you're going to give a talk about it later, so don't give away the whole thing, but maybe enough to sort of tease people to get them to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a very skeptical person by nature, and I saw HTAP, I'm like, what is that? Sounds cool, does it work? So we actually set out to make sure we were doing the right thing. So basically we got about 5 engineers into an Airbnb in Denver, made them work pretty much nonstop for 9 days. At the end of it, we had a viable prototype and 3 different solutions, and yeah, it was fun.
And how many HR complaints were filed against you when you locked people in the windowless Airbnb?
Yeah, surprisingly few actually. I was expecting a bit more, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a very hard week, but it was a lot of fun.
And I'm not going to ask you to give the details of the evaluation. That's for your talk. But maybe just a separate question is just what was the architecture and the tech stack that you had before you moved to TiDB?
Yeah, so, again, kind of scrappy startup. So it was basically Ruby, Rails, Postgres, and Elasticsearch. So a pretty simplistic architecture. It'll get you a ways, but it won't get you all the way.
That's all?
That's literally it. Yeah.
I think it's a very typical architecture when you're building something like this, right?
For a startup, yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
Okay, maybe you'll give away more in your talk. So everyone attend Andy's talk. So go back to the other side, to Mayank. We have a pretty broad set of folks here. Ed, can you pass him the mic? And you're one of the founding engineers at StarTree, which is based on Apache Pinot, which surely many folks in the audience here are aware of. Can you briefly talk about StarTree and Pinot? We've heard a lot about Databricks and an earful about TiDB. Great to hear and learn more about Pinot and StarTree.
Yeah, certainly I can definitely talk about that. So Apache Pinot is a OLAP data store that we built, originated at LinkedIn, but then it's currently a top-level Apache project. It was initially designed to solve the problem of exposing real-time analytics to LinkedIn members. And that was slightly different problem because that's where it's not a typical internal BI person who's looking at a dashboard. We're talking about 750 million LinkedIn users who are looking at the website. So the scale poses a very different problem. We're talking about 200,000 read queries per second, ingesting 1 million events per second, and so on and so forth. And that kind of the problem definition forced us to look for a new technology because the ones existing out there at the time weren't really able to solve that and scale for that. And that's how we ended up starting to build Apache Pinot. And since then, it has come a long way, and I'll talk about what kind of use cases it is powering across the industry, as well as some of our customers at StarTree, and how long it has come along, right? So that's something that I'll talk about in the talk.
Wow, there's some really remarkable stuff that came out of LinkedIn, right? There's Kafka, there's
Absolutely.
Pinot, the Data Hub, right?
Yeah.
Are there any other hidden projects in LinkedIn that are going to come out that's going to turn into some open core company that we should know about?
There's, I recently saw LinkedIn, so I'm no longer at LinkedIn, but I recently saw they open sourced Venice, which is the key value store. So I'm hoping that's kind of also going to repeat, the story that we're seeing here. So we'll see.
Got it. And I know you're going to talk a little bit more about StarTree in the
Yeah.
afternoon. Can you just give us a brief teaser on the talk and what people can expect to hear?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, if we look at the problem definition in the OLAP space, what's happened is a couple of things. First is the persona of the person who is the end user or the customer of this analytics information is starting to change from an internal BI person to maybe an exec or a data scientist to people like you and me, right? I mean, we're using analytics and using deriving insights as we go today without even realizing it, and that's kind of is a forcing function for building things like Apache Pinot, where not only the freshness of data to be analyzed is super important, but how fast you are rendering, at what scale you're rendering is also very important, right? So Apache Pinot is solving that in the open source. Just to give a teaser on what we do at StarTree, you think of Pinot as it's a tool built by engineers for engineers. I call it like the Ferrari engine for the things that it runs. But you don't sell engines to customers. You need to build a car around it, right? And so that's where kind of StarTree is taking Pinot. But why stop at just the car? What I mean by car here is essentially taking this engine, which is built by engineers for engineers, making it more frictionless to use, really easy to onboard, and all the bells and whistles of what you would expect in an enterprise project, right? But why stop there? Can you make this car self-driving, for example, so that you take away all the operational aspect of around it, and you also take away all the things that you would have to worry about in terms of initial onboarding, auto scaling, and things like that. And last but not the least, right? The one question you may want to ask is, do you really need the car, right? A lot of times you're just using the car to get some, run to the groceries and some stuff like that. And what it translates to in this particular scenario is, data applications. In the end, a lot of these things are just end up building, data applications on the massive amounts of data that you have, and render it to the end users at the scale that you wanted. And that's another thing that what we're trying to solve at StarTree in terms of the data products.
Awesome. Now that I'm in venture, I can be like pretty provocative and ask questions that I otherwise wouldn't get to ask if I were still operating. So I'm going to turn to Sri here, who is at AWS. Everyone knows AWS. Like I said earlier, I have to ask. You guys have Redshift, you have things like Athena. From where you sit in this humongous company, knowing that your lawyers may be in the back of the room, what can you say is fascinating or interesting for you guys? Or maybe this is just Sri speaking personally about TiDB.
Yeah, I think what we heard from Databricks and the co-founder of PingCAP. So basically, the individual's patience is reducing day by day because of the persona is changing. And if you notice, the HDFS to Spark, and now with the HTAP side of workloads, where people would like to get insights, analytic insights, pretty much in near real time. We don't use it real time in cloud computing. It's mostly near real time. So when individuals would like to make decisions based on what's happening in their business, not only they would like to look into their OLTP side of it, but they would like to see aggregation side of it. How many, for example, if a grocery chain, they would like to see in my peak period, how many customers have this business been attracted to. That is an aggregation, which is OLAP side. And in the meantime, the transactional side is also, the customers are coming into the store and making transactions. So they would like to see this data rolled up into the aggregate in near real time. So this is a unique use case, which is early in adoption. I think, I don't agree that HTAP is a dinosaur. I think it just started its adoption, and pretty soon, just like how the organization moved from HDFS to Spark, I would say more and more organizations would adopt OLTP and OLAP and TiDB. I would say it's still its early stages.
Awesome. And so you think about data pretty broadly from where you sit at AWS. What are some of the maybe futuristic things with respect to data that you're thinking about that maybe the audience would love to learn more about?
Yeah, in our cloud computing, we call it purpose-built databases. So I have a speaking session. I'm going to go over that. What we figured out that one individual, I don't call the name, you all know the name, so that we don't call that, that one database is going to solve all of your problems. So what we noticed that these use cases are evolving into microservices. Every department would like to solve a different problem. So they're moving towards microservices. That's why we have purpose-built databases. And then the next challenge the customers are asking is, now we have so many purpose-built databases, how do we like to query all these databases using one query engine? So the query federation is one of the things we are seeing, which Athena right now can go and talk to a wide variety of different purpose-built databases, and our customers using one single platform can derive insights from it. That is one of the trends. The second trend is, I know you must have all heard about data mesh. So data mesh is also early in its adoption stage. It's a microservices for databases. So it's basically, if you think about microservices, each microservice has, it could be same database, it could be different databases, but on top of it, they have to interact and they have to share information. So the data mesh is basically like microservices, where you envision the data as a product, not as a database. So every department has its own pipeline, its own data domain, and the agility of the data pipeline will increase. So if an organization would like to change a particular piece of it, they can just change the data pipeline. So it's still its early stages, though we publish a lot of technical content on how it can be done. But what we are seeing is, especially the traditional enterprises are very, very early in stage in adopting data meshes.
Awesome. Maybe just changing topics just a little bit. Ed, as a former CTO, I sort of know the job that you're playing, and part of your role is to think about the future. Could you share maybe the top 2 or 3 things that the audience may not be aware of that you're thinking about with respect to the roadmap and the future of TiDB?
Okay, cool. Good question. As a CTO and as an engineer, I would say my superpower is I can, wear our users' shoes. And actually, keep thinking about what kind of database as our customer or users going to use in the future. So first, I think the foundation of everything in the future is the cloud. So basically, if you are building a database nowadays, you should definitely applying the cloud native architecture and basically reflecting all the technology applying to the cloud. So this is the first thing I want to mention is kind of like the foundation. The second thing I think the most interesting thing in our big roadmap is just like Max mentioned in the requirement of HTAP, there is something called cost effectiveness. So I would say serverless, just in Max keynote mentioned, is the next big thing and will play the important role in the lower the cost of how our customer using TiDB on cloud. So basically, I want to share in last few months, our engineering team, R&D team in PingCAP, we are basically refactored the whole TiDB engine and applying a lot of like cloud native architecture and applying the storage computing separation to the storage engine of TiDB and make it maybe more cost effective. And another important thing I want to share about the serverless that is it is like the serverless database is I would say is fundamentally changed the engineers how they think about building application, how they think about programming. It is so easy to use because imagine that if you have a database, you can access from basically anywhere and it is out of the box. It supports SQL, transaction, and basically you can run any query you like. That's amazing. That will change a lot of things.
Maybe I'll insert a question here and surprise Mayank. Can you talk about serverless with respect to StarTree?
Sure, yeah, I think that's an interesting one for StarTree and Pinot as well, right? Basically, what we want to make sure is that, like I mentioned earlier in the previous conversation, was that Pinot is, it's hard to kind of, if you're not an engineer or if you're more of a data scientist, you don't really want to kind of be in the business of managing that service and running, auto scaling and, uptime and all those things. Right, and then taking that away from the end user so that they only worry about their business problem and more about deriving the insights or the things that they want to do as opposed to managing the infrastructure. That would be an that's, I think that just not applies to StarTree, but most technologies in general that you want to have the person focus on their business problem at hand and just abstract away the entire infrastructure and everything from them.
Awesome.
Actually, I want to add something. Actually, both StarTree and the TiDB, we are doing the database business, data business. I think another thing is really important is about back to the basic, like HTAP we are talking about today is there is a T inside the term transactional, so that means we actually do the OLTP business. That means a lot of customer putting their most mission critical workload rely on TiDB. So I think there's a big trend that a lot of vendors are focusing on the analytics side, But I think one of the most important thing for PingCAP is that we still doing some hard work, basic work like transaction scalability. So if you take a look at our roadmap, there is one very promising item is that TiDB can scale up to like 1 petabyte size of the OLTP workload. You can think of that 1 petabyte is so huge for the OLTP use case, and that means a lot of technical challenges in that scale. So yeah, and we actually get a lot of feedbacks from our customer. They are thinking, hey, PingCAP is doing great because you are facing to the real challenges. Yeah, I think that's also very important to us.
Awesome. I mean, serverless plus transactions must be a lot of fun, right? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. On the sort of inverse of the question I asked you earlier, what are the top 2 or 3 sort of problems or technical challenges that you're keeping you up at night working on TiDB? This is for you, Ed. Don't look to my
Okay. Yeah, I think just like I said, I think most of the challenges to us is on the OLTP side. Just like I said, people are always using TiDB in some very mission critical scenarios, and also using in the large scale, like Databricks, like Airbnb just mentioned, hundreds of nodes, and just like sometimes you want to keep like 200 or even more terabytes of data in your OLTP database, and you also require a really high SLA for your online service. That's really extreme challenge to us, and we are putting a lot of resource on that. Yeah, so I would say, just like I said, back to basic. You can do the basic thing forever if you are doing the OLTP business. Yeah.
Awesome. Turning back to Andy, you're still hands-on. You're pretty much an architect right now, but you still code, which is great. As an architect, I'm sure you think about like the illities of systems, right? And everyone sort of very technical in the crowd is familiar with that. What are some of the illities that you were concerned about before adopting TiDB?
Scalability. Done. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, just the sheer amount of data we're dealing with, like horizontal scalability is a must. Like we're not in a world where we can throw everything in a single, OLTP instance anymore. We're well beyond that. So, having a cloud-native, scalable database was honestly critical for our workload. So that was a big one. Obviously, high availability. Our customers rely on our system basically to do their job. Our customers are our customer success professionals. And so if our platform is not available, then they can't serve their customers. And so that's a big deal for us. So high availability is really critical. Affordability. You can pay a lot of money for these gigantic vertically scaled databases, and it just doesn't scale like monetarily. So that was another piece is, we needed the horizontal scalability in terms of, system performance as well as dollars.
Sri, do you have anything to say about that? He just said these databases are expensive.
Yeah, I mean, we enable that scalability. So the cloud computing is the one that enables unlimited scalability, and but as part of the shared responsibility model, our customers have to, in the case of PingCAP, they have to design their application in such a way that it is highly available, which they are doing it using Raft protocol, and they already have, I think, 4 nines SLA, which is pretty good. In the market, looks like right now, apart from the cache-based databases, near real-time and OLTP, that is the max we are seeing.
You have a feature in politics, Sri. That's a very diplomatic answer, but I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks.
All right. TiDB is written in Go, right? And Andy and Ed are like humongous Golang advocates. Now, this question is primarily for Andy and Ed, and I'll start with Andy. Did you care at all that was written in Go? Or did you have this walk-in bias being a Go fan? You're like, oh crap, there's this database written in Go, I'm just going to use it because I love Go.
Yeah, so I'm going to put on my architect hat first and say no, it had nothing to do with the decision. I'm going to take that hat off and put on my coder hat and say, yeah, that was super cool that it's written in Go. I mean, one of the things I like about Go is it makes it really easy to sit down and just write software that works, which, makes it inherently maintainable. So, kind of deep down, I do have somewhat of a trust of systems written in Go just because, it's kind of got this inherent maintainability that I've seen work out in real life repeatedly.
Why have you not become a Rust fan yet? All the cool kids are on Rust now.
Well, that was fun. Yeah, I know. I keep looking at it, and I get turned off by the syntax, and then I go back to my good old friend Go and just put Rust for next week.
Right.
Fun fact.
And maybe Ed, what motivated Go instead of TiDB, and why have you not adopted Rust yet?
Actually, we use a lot of Rust. Like 50% of our whole project is written in Rust. So yeah, but we love Go, and actually because I still remember the first time I used Go for building application. That time is actually even before Go released their 1.0. So I use a long time of Go. I love Go, and because I'm the big fan of Unix philosophy, I think the Golang is a very elegant, very simple syntax, really easy to learn. And it is a great example of the doing the things in the Unix way. But also, I personally I love Rust, also, yeah.
All right, we'll leave the religious debate between Go and Rust for lunch, which we're about 20 minutes away.
The favorite topic for
Right,
the engineer.
Everyone sit at
yeah.
table if you want to have that debate.
Yeah, programming language, right?
Sri, one more AWS question, which I'm sure you love. How can customers subscribe to PingCAP in AWS?
I think, honestly, PingCAP is still early in AWS. They are pretty big in China, and we are just starting their journey in US market. That is why I'm here, and we have several folks from business would also be joining in the evening. So it's too early to answer that question. So we still do not have the data points to say what our customers are talking about PingCAP, but in general, if you ask me what customers are asking for HTAP, then I think, which I already said, that customers would like to have near real-time insights into the analytics.
You'll be a politician one day, man. I promise. What city do you live in?
Yeah, East Bay. So.
All right, I'll be voting for you next year. Ed, there's a lot of talk about HTAP. We heard a lot from Matei. Heard a lot about Max. Everyone who's a technologist in the room. We tend to get excited about new tech very, very quickly. And there's a lot of hype, and there's always sort of this Gartner hype cycle that you have to sort of go through. But at the same time, I think people also want to be considerate and sort of deliberate before adopting a new technology. What would you say that people in the room who are thinking about TiDB should consider before making a move over?
Okay, that's a good question. I totally agree that there is no silver bullet in this world, right? So for adopting TiDB, for TiDB's case, I would say maybe starts with a real pain point, especially in your OLTP scenarios. Because I think the OLTP database or OLTP application are closer to the application, basically, and also closer to the fresh data. So, there's a lot of OLAP database, data warehouse. And TiDB use a different approach. So, if you're starting with the OLTP scenario, just like a lot of users using TiDB, just like Databricks and Airbnb, Pinterest, they are all starting from their scalability OLTP scenario and then expand to the real-time analytical workload. So that avoids the customer keep asking question, what's the difference between TiDB and ClickHouse? What's the difference between the Snowflake and TiDB? Because TiDB is actually can do as your primary database. So that's the biggest differentiator of like the HTAP compares to other OLAP databases. So I think so in the world, starting with the pain point in your, take a look at your OLTP databases. Yeah, that's my approach.
All right. So we heard a lot about TiDB and HTAP for the last 2 hours or so. Because we have some amazing technologists here on the panel, I'm going to ask maybe some broader questions over the last 10 minutes before lunch is served. So this is a broad question for the panel. Is there any emerging data technology that you're really excited about that you'd love to have the crowd hear about, that you'd love to share? And this is just, anyone can chime in here.
Yeah, you mean besides Apache Pinot?
Besides Pinot and everyone buying
and
StarTree,
TiDB. Yeah,
what do
okay,
you-
sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things happening here, right? I think the transactional and the analytical spaces joining together is more a function of the kind of use cases that are being forced, and definitely so, that's why TiDB and PingCAP are here. What I personally feel is two observations, right? One is the persona of people, or the end user, is going to govern as a forcing function of what is the technology or the set of technologies that's gonna, kind of emerge in the coming future, right? And I personally believe it's getting democratized a lot, the data and the insights and the time to deriving insights from the data. It's getting democratized tremendously. People like you and me are making conscious decisions based on data every day, every minute, right? And the technologies that are going to enable that are the ones to watch out for. One other thing besides TiDB, PingCAP, Pinot, StarTree that comes to my mind is Materialize. They also have some very interesting technology where you kind of have your transactional data flowing into Materialize views and being able to query data in real time. So I'm also keen to learn about that and know more about that.
Awesome.
I mean, I'll chime in here. There is a new protocol in town, which is called Accord protocol. So which is next generation draft protocol. So what it is doing is, it is basically making the transactions consistent across replication as well as transactions, which is a major challenge. So what they add some timestamp to that, and they assume some latency across nodes. So when the transaction goes in, the number of round trips would be reduced and the latency would be reduced. So it is still in academic stage, but I think in next 5 years it will take off, and it may be the next generation protocol for leaderless analytic engines.
Okay. In my mind, I think one, serverless will be the big thing, just like I mentioned, and a lot of more and more infrastructure, software, or database will provide their serverless capability on the cloud. I think it's kind of like the next level of cloud native. Another big trend, I would say, I really love to see more innovations in the OLTP world, just like what TiDB is doing. The third thing I would say is maybe the Watson will be the next, the combination of data, database, data technology with WebAssembly that maybe really, that's a very interesting topic.
Awesome. 2 more questions. Will anybody lean in here and make a bold prediction about some kind of technology that everyone's talking about today that we'll all forget in 5 years? And the answer cannot be Web3 or crypto.
JavaScript. I'm sorry, that's a joke. I'm just wishful thinking.
Oh no, is this question too provocative? Nobody wants to go on YouTube?
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking the Web3 will be the big thing. Yeah, also, yeah, because, there's a lot of missing piece in the Web3 world. So yeah, I think my bold guess is actually Web3.
So TiDB will not be storing cold data on the blockchain?
Maybe I think that the biggest missing part, I would say, is there is no Oracle in Web3 world. No SQL database in the Web3 world. So maybe.
I know I won't hear from you because you're representing AWS and you can't say anything.
I can say something politically correct, which is 4G technology, which would be in the tech museum pretty soon, at least in the United States. Across the world, I would say I still have 3G in some part of the world. I think in the next 5 years, you won't hear of 3G or 4G.
I think that's already happening.
Yeah.
In the US, but across the world, it's
Oh,
still
okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, you guys were not bold. It's okay. I get it. So last question here. We heard a lot for the last, say, 2.5 hours. What are the 1 or 2 things that you think people attending today should walk away from knowing?
Your time.
I was really heartened to see the combination of streaming data and batch data. I've worked at several jobs, and literally we always have that problem that you have to combine basically batch data ingest with streaming data. And like we tend to treat it very differently. And so I'm really looking forward to this kind of marriage of the streaming paradigm to the batch paradigm. I can speak specifically for Catalyst. We have so much like real-time, like honestly, user telemetry data that we have to ingest and deal with on a real-time basis. But we also have a lot of like transactional data and a lot of like historical analytical data. So like having the marriage of all of this stuff, like I'm super excited about the prospect of that happening.
Yeah, I think in our session we're going to go over that, how Redshift can enable it. In fact, our Redshift product manager is here. He's going to go over integrating PingCAP with Redshift will enable you getting the best of all 3 worlds, streaming, OLTP, and OLAP. So what I would expect from PingCAP, from AWS is we just started our journey and we would like to do many, many integrations with the PingCAP, and we would like to have machine learning models built from PingCAP. We would like to have direct data ingestion into Amazon S3 from PingCAP, and we would like to see a streaming API endpoint, so you can directly ingest streaming data into PingCAP. So we would like to open up all the use cases for PingCAP in coming years.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm personally here to also learn more about, I think the problem is real in terms of having to be able to perform real-time analytics on transactional data. So I'm really excited here to learn how, PingCAP is solving that problem. And I'm also hoping that, I'm able to share my experiences from the OLAP world through my presentation and perhaps offline as well. So yeah, I think that's.
yeah, and I'm really glad that everyone loves PingCAP and TiDB. That makes me a lot of pressure on me. Yeah, actually, in my mind, making TiDB better and better is of course. And one thing I'm really excited about is we are applying some machine learning technology into our product. It's not database for AI workload, but it's using machine learning to make the database help you creating a better database, like do the auto tuning, do the index suggestion. I think that will be really, really useful when you have a large amount of users and you want to provide a stable service on cloud. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Mayank, do you have machine learning?
Not yet, no.
Why? What's going on, man, over at StarTree? Everyone has machine learning these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're solving slightly different problems right now, so yeah.
I love that answer. That's all. That's awesome. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone here on the panel today. I think we're going to set up world's first by stopping 4 minutes early. We're actually ahead of schedule, and lunch sounds like it's over there. So everyone, please thank our esteemed panelists, and hope you all enjoy lunch.